it's not going to be a problem. And then at 3 o'clock on Sunday morning, if she's in the emergency room with a platelet count that's way low, a baby that's in distress, all kinds of bad things happening, you guessed wrong. How great is it in this day and age that someone can have a blood pressure cuff that can actually measure their blood pressure, record it on their iPhone, email it to their doctor, and that monitoring can occur in an out-of-hospital event, as an out-of-hospital event, and people can go on about their business, and you significantly reduce unnecessary hospitalizations. But more important to me as an obstetrician who practiced, and you also can significantly reduce the very unfortunate sequelae if you in fact assess incorrectly at the time of that event. So those two things, the development of a health savings account to put the patient back in charge, the iPhone or the smartphone or the handheld device that gives the patient actually the ability to participate in the monitoring of their care. These are two things that I think will profoundly change and affect the future of care. Certainly it would, if I were still in practice, I would be incorporating those activities on an ongoing basis. Now, as I mentioned, my smartwatch won't communicate with my smartphone about the EKG because it's not available in my country. One of the other tasks we have, oh, by the way, if reforming or replacing the Affordable Care Act was not enough work for the subcommittee that I'm chairing now this term in Congress, we also have the user fee agreements at the Food and Drug Administration that are expiring. And I know many people at the American Enterprise Institute are interested in what happens at the FDA because I've heard from some of you. I'm interested as well. We just went through a big legislative effort with Cures for the 21st Century. There will be ongoing work that's done at the regulatory side with the Food and Drug Administration in the user fee reauthorizations. This happened in 2012. That was an election year. It was a tough year to get any kind of bipartisan agreement, but we did, and the bill got signed into law 3 months early. You don't know that because the president signed it in a broom closet. It was 2012. He was running for re-election. He didn't want to be seen with us. We didn't want to be seen with him. So it just happened. It just got done. The work got done for the American people. And again, I would point out that it was 3 months ahead of schedule. Same thing will happen this year. All the time that the Affordable Care Act, whatever happens next in that, is being marked up and debated in the Subcommittee of Health and Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means. There will also be activity happening on the Food and Drug Administration reauthorization. And that's critical work, because the ACA reform is something that's going to happen right now. The FDA reform are things that happen for years into the future. And I know that because of when we did our last one, it was very rare that a week went by that there was not someone in my office with a tale of woe about how they'd had difficulty dealing with getting things through the FDA. And we need to make that a more straightforward. I'm not saying that anything needs to be shortened or curtailed, but we need to make it more straightforward. And the agency cannot change the rules late in the game, send everyone back to the starting gate and say we've decided on a different set of parameters that have to be shown for this, and you just simply have to start all over again. Let me just, in the next couple of minutes, talk to you more from my role as a member of Congress, my role as being on the subcommittee that's going to be doing a lot of this work on the Affordable Care Act. 3 big pieces of health policy have happened in my brief tenure in Congress, which started in January of 2003. 2003, you may recall, was the year of the Medicare Modernization Act. Bill Thomas, chairman of the Ways and Means, actually worked very closely with counterparts over in the Senate. Remember, Senator Ted Kennedy was involved with that, and ultimately came up with the what is now known as Part D, the prescription drug benefit in Medicare. President Bush, when he was running, said, I am going to get this done. So there was no question about whether or not it would be done, and in fact, it got done. Arguably bipartisan, although certainly there are people on the Democratic side of the subcommittee who will say, no, there really wasn't bipartisan. You held the vote open for 4.5 or 5 hours. That's how it was bipartisan. That may be true, but we were just waiting for David Wu to vote. And when he did, it was quickly. But as that implementation occurred with Part D, there were some tough spots. January 2006, when the date that it all began, phones were ringing because people were having problems. I would argue because it was bipartisan, because both President Bush and Senator Kennedy were interested in this thing working right. And of course, you had Secretary Mike Leavitt at the Department of Health and Human Services was interested in it working correctly. There was a lot of effort put into fixing those problems. And I was impressed that the problems that started at the 1st of January were quickly ameliorated, such that by the end of that month, or certainly by Valentine's Day, they were pretty much old news or ancient history. The Affordable Care Act passed in 2009 and 2010. The Affordable Care Act was a singular party that was in charge of that. So when trouble occurs, do I want to step up and help? No, my fingerprints aren't on that. Why would I get involved at this point? So the lack of bipartisanship, if you will, I think was damaging on the when the Affordable Care Act got into trouble with the implementation. It was not just distracting, it was damaging for the future of the law. And then in April of 2015, we passed a bill called the Medicare Access and Chip Reauthorization Act. I like to call it the SGR repeal because it solved a problem, albeit a problem created by Congress. It solved a problem that had bedeviled doctors, patients, and policymakers for 17 years. It took us 13 years to solve it, but indeed we did. That vote was strongly bipartisan, strongly bicameral. 392 positive aye votes on the House, 92 yes votes in the Senate. Well, when the proposed rule came out in June year, it scared everyone to death. Oh my gosh, what are you doing to small practices? Are people actually going to be able to continue in a 1 or 2 person practice because of some of the things that have come out in the CMS rule interpretation? And a valid question. Because of the bipartisan nature of that bill when it passed, the administrator at Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services heard from Republicans, Democrats, House members, senators, and it changed. Between June and October, that rule, when it was republished in October, was vastly different, and a lot of flexibility was built into that process. And I'll even go one step further. Andrew Slavitt said he's going to leave the comment period open on comments coming in on the macro rule that was published in October. That is exactly the type of interaction that you want. We've had 3 oversight hearings in Energy and Commerce on the implementation of macro. Even with all the other stuff that is going to be happening this year and next, we will continue to have oversight hearings on the implementation because it is so important that it be done right. Obviously, there's going to be some changes at the agency, which may affect for better or for worse, how things happen on the implementation side. But regardless of who's the head of that agency, I want them to know that the subcommittee still feels very strongly that the legislative language that was passed is what we want to see enacted, and we don't want someone going off in a different direction from what congressional intent was when that vote received that strong bipartisan majority. So the lesson going forward, and the point I tried to make to younger members of Congress who were at the Rules Committee last night, coming both as witnesses and on the committee, the lesson going forward for us is we have a job to do for the American people. And it's not a Republican or a Democrat. It needs to be done by both sides and both houses working together. Yes, we need to listen to what the White House has to say because ultimately the president will either sign or not sign the product that we deliver to them. But it does require all hands to be on deck. It's difficult because right now the landscape is difficult. The well has been poisoned by so many people in so many different flavors. It's hard to know who went first and who drank first, but we've got to get over that. We just literally do. People are counting on us to get this done and to get this right. My focus goes to the patient, but sure, I hear from hospital executives. I promise you I hear from doctors. I hear from people in industry who are making investments right now in either medicines, devices, technologies that they think are going to be important for the future. I want them to do that. That's what the Cures for the 21st Century is all about. We want to facilitate that activity. So Dr. Antos has joined me on stage, which I know is my cue. I would just stress for people, there is the Speaker's Better Way agenda that actually was unveiled here at AEI earlier or last year, and the Better Way is the roadmap. Those are the building blocks for the policy that the subcommittee is going to take up. I do want to point out, and I will leave this book for Dr. Antos. This is a book I wrote right after the Affordable Care Act